Hello my friends, I am Lucas and you are watching coldemonspl, and this is my son Ivo.
Hello!
Because of the last warm days, I made a quick bike trip with the children around my city and its surroundings. Such a small relax before the next model. Ladies and gentlemen, Tiger from Border Model. If you want to see what's in the box, click on the link above. Let's start. Okay, these pins are designed to stabilize the chassis, but I decided to make it partially movable because it would be easier to adjust the model to the base. The first and the last pins stay in the place for better stabilization. I glued the end inside with super glue, and that's how it works when the whole section is ready. The main parts of the hull were on the frame, so first I cut them and prepared for the building. I have a good but short memory, so I immediately added the elements for the inside to avoid unnecessary problems with gluing parts when the hull will be ready. And a little trick for the transparent visors. It's enough to stick the masking tape and remove it after painting in order to not worry about the good appearance of the glass. I was very curious to see how the grill nets fit. We can use them, although their accuracy is highly debatable. I don't mean the overall size, because this one is well suited to the model, but the shape and appearance of the meshes. Their weave isn't as it should be, which is easy to see in archival photos. I cut them out of the photo etched plate and sanded the edges, and then with the help of the bending tool I prepared them for adding to the kit. No spectacular success, but it's good. Black Widow super glue from AK is the best option at this point, because it gives the possibility of exact positioning of the parts and dries after a while. Oh, please forgive me for not framing the shot. And we put in the right place. A moment of pressing and it's ready. Now a little kneading with the tip of the tweezers and we can move on the next parts. In the end they look good on the model, and their incompatibility with the original is not so visible when we glue them. The whole assembly was quite quick, but you need to pay attention to the exact fitting of the parts. In the beginning I was quite happy with the weld bits in the model, but then I decided to replace them and made some new by myself. The most important thing now was to cut the old welds quite accurately. The best tool for this is a special scriber. I also use the modeling knife to cut out all the remains. Generally you have to be very careful because it's easy to go beyond the line and damage the surface of the model. And now quite a big oversight done by the producer. The front plate is clearly too thin and you need to thicken it. It's not a complicated task, but requires some precision. It's enough to stick a strip of plastic of the appropriate thickness and we have a thick plate, but we also have to weld it on. So I made an additional groove for green stuff using the same method as before. You have to do it really delicately so as not to unnecessarily damage the elements around. As long as there are no glued details and no weld bits, we can improve the texture of the steel. Of course it's not necessary, and if someone says that what is prepared by the manufacturer suits his needs, okay. As for me, it's worth spending time doing something nicer. I used AK putty for this and diluted it with water. The old brush was best for applying this mix. While it was drying I tapped the surface a bit and added a bit more putty here and there. After drying, and it was quite fast, I sanded all the surfaces and the armor plates were ready. It's important to be moderate in this case, because if you add too much putty, the effect will be not convincing and similar to the Soviet armor casting. The welding time. I rolled out the green putty into tin sausages or snakes. It doesn't matter how we can call this thing. To arrange them in the grooves I prepared earlier. I added a little water to prevent the mass from sticking to the tools. And now, bit by bit, I fill in all the places on the hull where it had to be done. To shape the mass I used my old C-shaped tool, which is made up of a piece of tin metal plate, a toothpick and a metal handle. Previously this piece of metal plate was heated over the flame so that it could be bent more easily, depending on the size of the wheels we need. I wonder how many times I have imprinted the weld beams on this model. I have to try to count them next time. During the construction I relied on these two books, which contain almost all the knowledge that modelers need to create a miniature of a tiger. They are not the latest in fact, but it's not a problem. Historical knowledge is not getting old. If you have the opportunity to buy one or both, I highly recommend them because they will definitely be useful when working on Tiger 1 or King Tiger. Okay, now it's time to make some detailing on the model. We start with the back wall with all the elements that need to be there. First, the biggest elements, which mean exhaust and air filters from the FIFO system. After basic gluing, some texture has to be applied to the exhaust covers and exhaust pipes. It wasn't complicated because I used the same putty again. Quick drying with the hairdryer and sanding, of course. Half of them will be obscured anyway, but leaving them without the texture isn't an option. The exhaust have open flaps because I have a plan to put the model on a stand in a combat position, with the engine running. Originally I wanted to use the upper shields. I took one out to check. After warming it up properly with the torch flame, it became much softer and was easy to bend. I was afraid that it might not fit the handles on the model, and sadly it was true. The cover itself looks great, but the size differences are too big and my laziness took over, so I left the mufflers without covers, which is also correct as I found in the war pictures. All in all, when I make German vehicles I always add photo etch set to build the jack from scratch, but the number of these parts discourages me from working on them. Maybe I will make some separate video for some freaks if they are so eager to see how it looks like. It's just an idea, let me know what do you think about this. Here I only replaced the handles and the crank. I attached the printed 3D clamp, but the jack is not fully attached. So what do we have here? This metal tube, or more precisely the tip that I am about to cut, will be the ring for the spare antennas tube. The plastic profile looks much better than the part from the model, so I decided to make it from scratch. It wasn't that hard anyway, now you can see exactly how both parts look like. I guess I did it better. Here the same way of masking the periscope glass as we used in the beginning. A simple work, but we need a sharp knife to cut the masking tape even. And you have to stick it well so that the paint doesn't flow underneath. I hope to remember to check it out before painting. The weld bits look really nice, so I left them. I'm just cutting off the 3D printed clamps. I said it before on the E60 movie. Despite the price, I definitely prefer it than photo etched. Faster and more accurate. I don't need movable ones, they just need to be accurate and hold the tools well. But there I only used them on the rear of the vehicle where they were missing. The tools are good enough that there is no point in changing them and doing it just to say that there is a super duper clumps everywhere. It's simply pointless for me. Time is money. And right after that I glued all the tools back to their place. Easy. Now it's a good moment for some jewelry accessories. First, the barrel of the front machine gun, which is a super accurate replica from the master model. It consists of 2 parts and we need to glue it before adding to the kit. If you want to buy some, just check the link in the description. Then I prepared cleaning rods with handles to which towing cables were also attached. I used an rubber kit for this, even though I also had 3D prints, but I wanted to use this kit so that it wouldn't be smacking around the box with accessories. The center must be filled and properly formed. Fortunately, simple tools like a toothpick will make this job easier. To find the place where all the handles should be glued, I used the drawings from the book that I showed earlier and made out the appropriate places. It could be done more easily by measuring the distance, but sometimes the simplest ideas come too late. Nevertheless, the handles had their location and I was able to safely add them to the model. Now I could take care of the towing cables. Those of you who saw my models in previous videos and various articles know that I mainly use Eureka XXL products. For me this is the best solution and I haven't come across a model yet in which these cables are better than their products. Resin ends require gentle cleaning and are practically ready for further use just after this. On this model, to find the right length of each rope, I used plastic parts and adjusted the length by adding a little bit at both ends to slide into the resin ends. Well, now how to put the tip in a shackle. Just gently cut the eyelet in the right place, stretch it, but gently and click. Sits in the right place. Now the rope is attached to the model and it's ready. Of course, earlier I had planned and properly bent the entire section so as not to struggle when it was already clipped into the handles. All was saved with drop of super glue. And this is how the whole arrangement of the ropes on the model looks like. I did the same with a thin rope to hold the tracks during repair or servicing. Here I went a little crazy and created the final layout with some artistic freedom. I've always wondered why the Tigers had so many wheels. The answer is simple, so that modelers have something to send. Well, seriously speaking, contrary to appearances, it isn't as complicated to build as it may seem. I prepared the wheels and glued them together into complete sets. When applying you have to think a little bit, but the movable rods give a lot of opportunities to put the individual wheels freely. A little bit of strength and everything is going well. I wouldn't be myself if I didn't add some upgrades. I accidentally hit an ET model set with resin wheels without rubber bands. I risked buying them even though they are not intended for border but for dragon. And there is actually a small difference in size, but not so visible that you can give up using this set. I trimmed a little and tweaked the mounting so that all the wheels were in line and ready. Before the final placement I will establish their position in row once again, because for now they are being put in place only for checking. The drive and idler wheels fall into place without any major problems. Only a bit of blue tack for a hold was needed, as there is no rubber inside like on other brands models. And now you can clearly see how all axes work. I hope they will fit nicely to the base. Well, I hope? No, I'm sure that it will be so. The tracks fit perfectly into the model. Please forgive me that I'm not showing the process, but I did it earlier in some free time. Nothing is lost. Check the link where you can exactly see the tool I used for building tracks. The moving wheels never want to jump right into their place and they need a little help. Especially in Tiger, where we have a total of 48 road wheels and each has to find its place on the tracks. Well, when everything is fine, it looks really cool. I shortened the tracks a bit and added the leftovers to my spare parts box. In this way I have already completed half of the second set of metal tracks. In the future I will use them on some wreck or end war mixed version one. We'll see. Now we can easily install the fenders. They are also from the Jewelry category and undoubtedly enrich the model. However, I had it, this is the one with exhaust covers, and decided to make use of it. I formed the fenders on a bending tool, and before the gluing I gently destroyed the straight lines on the edges, and then once they were in place I hit them with a sharp skewer to make battle marks. It's important to arrange them in a random manner. To make a strong connection I glued small pieces of the plastic profile on the underside, which will be invisible anyway because I'm going to cover them with mud. There are also small grenade launchers on the Aber's photo etch set. I didn't like the ones that I put on earlier, and they had a bad shape because were intended to be used on turrets launchers. So first I heated the plate with a torch. Then, gradually making the appropriate shape, I prepared all the launchers for adding to the kit. I could also use metal bases, but I didn't want to tear off the plastic parts anymore, because it would be more work to repair than it was worth. And that's how it ends when we work too hard with the model. Fortunately, it was quickly repaired. Now the coolest part for me is screwing the metal muzzle brake. Some kind of fetish or what? I never thought something like this would be so fun. It has brought so much joy and laughter into my grey plastic life. The second set with barrels for my Tiger is also from master model, but this time it's only one part to be mounted in the turret. Great stuff! Before I put all the elements of the turret together, I first need to make new welding. Exactly the same as before on the hull, but now I will use the fact that it's not glued yet. You have to be careful and calmly take out an excess of plastic. A sharp knife is an essential tool at this point, but I admit that it's easy to cut yourself. I did it, but then you can say that the model was born in blood and pain. After gluing the whole thing, I also cut out the side welds. Almost all of them, but I decided to leave those around side visors and commander's turret. Laziness has won. All the edges have been gently sanded and softened with a thin plastic glue. And now I could start applying new welding. Same as before. All in all, it's getting pretty quick. I think an hour will be enough to cover the entire turret section. The white of the metal barrel made the whole thing swing, so I decided to add the white on the opposite end. 2 nuts did the trick. A few drops of super glue and we have stabilization ready. Last but not least, some cool effects with traces on the turret armor. The rolled armor plate isn't perfect, and when we add battle marks to it, the surface shouldn't be smooth. Small holes, bigger holes, dents, scratches, all this can be prepared in a few minutes. Then sand it lightly and cover with thin glue. As for me, the effect is nice and it will be fun to paint it and do some extra weathering. It's built. As you can see, it looks impressive. If you have any suggestions or questions, write in the comments. I will try to answer as soon as possible. For all those who haven't subscribed to my channel yet, do it now. Just click that red button below. Don't be an ass, be my subscriber. Thank you very much. You won't be disappointed for sure, because I'm planning more interesting models and other films about our great hobby. You can also click like, it will come in handy. In the next episode we will paint our kitten. The plan is to make it in 1943 from Das Reich division. I also found a nice figure to put in the vehicle, so it will be interesting. If I had to evaluate the model in terms of construction, I think it's good, but it could be better. 9 points out of 10 is sufficient and fairly reflects what I think about this model. Both beginners and advanced modelers can handle it, but if someone wants to make a superior miniature out of it, you need to expect to spend more money on aftermarkets. Well, I'm done for today. See you next Monday. Cheers!